Ready, set, go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle Henderson. We are the Soil Fertility Group, and today we have Christopher Pertschy from Timac Agro teaching us everything we need to know about soil fertility. Take it away, Chris.
So, good afternoon or morning, whenever you guys are seeing this, everybody. I am Chris Pertschy. I'm the National Product Manager for Timac Agro Canada. So that means I take care of anything product related, agronomy related across the country where we operate. So before we start, I'll give you a quick background on our company to just give you insight what we do. We're pretty new in Ontario and in the rest of Canada. We have had a presence in Quebec and internationally for quite a long time, as you'll see. But in Ontario, we're pretty new and we're kind of disruptors in the marketplace. So, uh, yeah, we'll show what we do and see how we work in the marketplace and then go through some of the questions that you guys had for us. So, now we will flip sides. So, who are we? So, Timac Agro, we're a family owned business. We are owned by Monsieur Rouillet. He's approximately 92 years old. He still goes to the office, and we are based in Saint-Malo, France, which is in Brittany, not far off from the D-Day beaches. Timac is a subsidiary of Groupe Rouillet, which is named after our founder, Monsieur Rouillet. The company is still family owned. It's run by the board of governance and Daniel's five daughters and grandchildren. And the agricultural division was the first division and is also the most important division of the company. And TMAC actually is an acronym for French words, essentially, as you see here on the screen. In English, it translates to the industrial transformation of merle into calcium amendment. Transformation industrielle du merle en amendement calcaire. So, in the very beginning, when the company was established in 1959, Monsieur Rouillet and his colleagues realized that wherever they were putting crushed merle or seashell, that they were extracting out of the English Channel, and seaweed crops were growing better. So that was the foundation of the business. Fertilizer from the sea, calcium amendment from the sea. Over time, they honed in on the science behind it, what makes these products work, and we have kind of become a very big, very family-owned ag R&D company in Europe. So you can see at the bottom of the slides here, it started literally out with low tides, harvesting seaweed by hand, one of our first factories in the 70s, and where we used to harvest the merle and then ship it away by rail car to get granulated. So what do we do? Like I said, we're a family-owned company. We're also vertically integrated, which means we do everything internally from A to Z. So we own the sources of the raw material. We have the factories that transform it. We even have a division of the company that makes the packaging to put the product in. We also have the R&D departments to make the products, and we are also very diversified in our offering. So in Canada, we are particularly focused on crop nutrition and crop science, whereas in Europe, we also have a division that takes care of animal production. So we will take care of animal welfare, animal nutrition, and animal hygiene as well. So we control the whole supply chain from A to Z, which is pretty uncommon for a lot of companies. We are very embedded in performant and sustainable agriculture. Everything we do has science behind it. We have approximately 108 production sites. Our sales reps on the ground visit globally 20,000 farms a day. We have 40,000 farm ATCs, so our agronomic technical consultants, and we're present in over 42 countries. We have over 194 scientific partnerships, some of which are in Canada. We have 213 patents. We make about 5 million tons of enhanced efficiency fertilizers, and we are one of the world leaders in biostimulants, having started the segment in 1987. So, how does that look for Canada? We do all our expertise is backed by science. On social media, you might see pictures of like farm demonstrations where we pull roots and compare, oh, there's more nutrient uptake. That is very pertinent to proofing the product locally. But behind that, we have partnerships with the University of Calgary. Our partner, Dr. Marcus Samuel, actually received an endowment from the owners of approximately €400,000 to help with soil remediation and bringing soils back to useful state that we can farm. We also have partnerships with the University of Saskatchewan. We've also worked with Lakehead. On my end, for field proofing the products, we work with the University of Guelph's research sites in New Liskeard and Winchester, and we've also worked with that at Simcoe. We've also worked with McGill University on the redox potentials of soils. We also work with Cornell, Purdue, universities around the world for when we make our products. That being said, everything we develop is in the guise, well, not in the guise, the goal of the product is to improve the sustainability and economic viability of farmers. So, for example, Top Phos was developed for the Brazilian market. Growers down there, after clearing land, had problems with phosphorus tie-ups in their crops. That being said, with our university partners, we figured out how to protect phosphorus to make it less prone to tie-up. And that's where, after 20 years of research and product testing and field testing, Top Phos was launched in 2012. So everything we do does have a science background. We also win awards around the country. We won one of the most innovative products in the potato industry with Spud Start magazine awards at farm shows and trade shows as well. So our mission as a company in Canada is to bridge together performant and sustainable agriculture. So whatever we do has to increase yield, has to increase profitability, but also has to be sustainable. There can't just be a short-term win to this. So in doing so, we identified the constraint of soils to design fertilizers and other products like soil conditioners, biostimulants, stabilizers, with the most efficient nutrients tailored to what the crop actually needs. So in Canada, our portfolio, for example, includes nitrogen stabilizer like Excelis Max. We also have an NPK stabilizer like Duomax, which protects liquid fertilizer more so from tie-up and leaching and loss. Top Phos is a phosphorus, whole new molecule that has been complexed with humic substances and marine calcium. We also have Fertiaquil and Fertiliter, which are two biostimulants that help with crop establishment and mitigation of abiotic stress during the growing season. So how does this all play out? How do we do this? Like I said, we have our own factories. We can integrate a wide range of nutrients. And if we have, let's say, a group of growers or a retail network in Ontario, for example, that wants a specific analysis of a fertilizer containing a certain technology of ours, with a minimum order, we can make that happen. And we have many unique products that are patented that contain technologies to help minimize fertilizers' impact on the environment and also stimulate the metabolism of plants. So as a company, we're very flexible with working with our partners and growers on what they actually need. So at a glance, this is how our portfolio looks like currently in Canada. So we have Top Phos, like I said, is a phosphate product that has been complexed with humics and calcium to prevent tie-up in the soil. Excelis Max is our nitrogen stabilizer. Duomax is our NPK stabilizer. Brio P is a liquid fertilizer line that we have that helps stimulate root growth and early establishment. Fertiaquil and Fertiliter help the plants cope with abiotic stress, which we know is getting worse and worse year after year. Two products that we have in our animal care and welfare line, Actisan and Actipost. Actisan dehydrates bedding, so making the environment within the barn better for animals, so improving their welfare. And Actipost is a manure stabilizer, which helps break down the organic matter in manure and also acts as a sponge for nutrients so they don't get lost. And then also soil health. Like soil health is something that gets very neglected by most farmers and agronomists. We have Humistart, which contains the PhysioPro specificity, which is a marine calcium, which is very reactive, that helps with improving soil structure and everything that comes along with it. So like I said earlier, on social media, we have lots of pictures of roots and such. So what we do is we actually field proof our products. So yes, we have the whole science baggage behind us. It's fine that it works in the lab, it's fine that it works in theory, but how does it look when we actually do it in the field? So that's why on social media, on our website, you can see here, if you scan the QR code, you will actually see our database, which is integrated with the Google Maps, where you can pinpoint where exactly in the country from Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, we have done all our research, which is pretty cool. Not many companies actually have such a deep data set. And since we commenced in Ontario or launched operations outside of Quebec in right before COVID, which was frankly an awesome time to kick off a new company during lockdowns, uh, we have been able to get almost just shy of 1,000 on farm trials, including third-party research and partnerships with like the likes of the Winchester Research Station of the University of Guelph and New Liskeard. So now we'll hop into the questions. I'll let Kyle take it away.
Awesome. Thanks for the general overview there. So we have a couple questions that were written in here from members of the group and members of the class. The first one was, would you be able to give us a general overview of like soil fertility, like your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, and the different fertilizer options that we have available out there?
So everything breaks down to NP and K. Those are your three main nutrients that everybody goes after and farmers talk about. Then you have secondary nutrients like sulfur and calcium and zinc. That being said, there are many ways to play around with fertilizer to get what you actually need. Some of the questions are not in the best order. I might end up repeating myself, but the best thing to know what you need for your crop is A, look at the zone you're living in, look at the crop you're growing, and then take a soil test to know what's actually in your soil. With your agronomist, or you being the agronomist, you can make up your own fertilizer needs depending on whatever fertility strategy that you're using on your farm. So if you're a dairy farm in, let's say, or a dairy farm in Oxford County, or a veggie farmer in Norfolk, where you have a lot of fertility in your soil, you might take a strategy of where you can try to come up with strategies to help use up the fertility that you already have in your soil, and you'll work your way back from that. Or if you're in a more rural area like Hastings, Renfrew, or even Prescott Russell, where your fertility is a little lower, you can increase your fertility as such by the fertilizer that you're doing. Or even if you're up in New Liskeard, Temiskaming, you're not going to pull the same corn yields as somebody in Chatham, Kent. So the amount of nutrition that your crop will need essentially will be significantly less than somebody in the southern regions. So overview of NPK fertilizer and different fertilizer options. I put down basic commodity fertilizers on this slide. So in nitrogen, there's one that I did not put in because we're working in an Ontario context. There's also anhydrous in the prairies, but we do not touch that in Ontario, thankfully. So under nitrogen, you have urea, 4600. You have UANs, which is a liquid fertilizer that comes in either 32% or 28%. 32% is available more in Eastern Ontario because the terminal is located in Three Rivers, Quebec. 28 tends to be more available around Hamilton and further down the Seaway. The only difference between the two products is one is more concentrated than the other. 28% can be stored on farm in the fall and can freeze and will not crystallize out. So the freezing process, because of the concentration of 32, will make the ingredients within the fertilizer come out of suspension and precipitate to the bottom of your holding tank. Really, really, really unpleasant when you have to re-agitate that together. 2700 is calcium ammonium nitrate. It's not as common in Ontario. It's more used in hort settings in Ontario and also in Quebec. There's a large use for it due to the flexibility in starter fertilizers. Like the name says, it has calcium, ammonium, and nitrate in it. It is not a very nice product. It's very sensitive to humidity and temperature change. So it's a good thing that we don't use much of it in Ontario, but also some of the fertilizers do not get along with each other. So for example, if you're mixing so 2700 with 46, or you had a truck that contained 46 and has 27 in it afterwards, the dust will react. So that dust will eventually turn into a sludge, and with time it will harden to the point that you can break metal. It is very unpleasant. So in a fertilizer plant, you got to pay attention to what you are doing. Instead of 2700 in corn starters in Ontario, we tend to roll with 2100. Ammonium sulfate. I forgot to write the 24S behind it. That is a good, it is like the name says, ammonium sulfate. It contains ammonium and it also has sulfate into it. So that's a very easy way to get your sulfur component into your blend. You also have 1200. This formulation can change a fair bit depending on the supplier, the degree of S in it. It's ammonium thiosulfate. It's a liquid fertilizer that some growers will often add to their UAN to supplement with sulfur. On the phosphorus, you have four main ingredient base fertilizers. That being said, you have 1152, which is MAP, which is pretty much your golden standard in the province of Ontario. It contains 11% nitrogen, 52% phosphorus, and 0 potash. So how to read a fertilizer analysis? Everything is in metric, which makes life very. So if you are looking at this, how many kilograms of nitrogen is in 1 ton of MAP, and how many kilograms of phosphorus is in 1 ton of MAP? It's pretty simple, just add a 0. So in 1 ton of MAP, you have 110 kilograms of nitrogen. How many pounds is that? Multiply that by 2.2, because there's 2.2 pounds in 1 kilogram. Same thing for 52. You have 520 kilograms of phosphorus in your fertilizer. Multiply that by 2.2, you get your answer in pounds in ton. It's when you're doing fertilizer calculations, it's a lot of just calculating percentages and concentrations. And if you're very visual, honestly, just do a cross product. 1846-0 is DAP. In the Eastern Ontario, Quebec market, we tend to see a combination of MAP or DAP. MAP is prevalent in North America, but globally, DAP is king because you also get more nitrogen within that. You also have triple superphosphates, so you have 0,45,0. It's a pure phosphate product, very unstable. It is concentrated, but it does not like being mixed with other ingredients. You can also have different analyses of it as well. And then you have simple superphosphate, which is 0,18,0. On the potassium side, you have potash, muriate of potash from Saskatchewan. You have the pink stuff, which is 0,60. Some suppliers have 0,062. It's just a matter of the refinement process. Then you also have sulfate of potash, which is 0,050, and it also contains 18S. The S fluctuates depending on who's making it, but it is pretty consistent in it. On the right side here, you see a standard label. So I have a label here from a Top Phos product that we carry in Eastern Canada, Top Phos 1520. So on the label, you will always see the guaranteed analysis of a fertilizer. So this fertilizer, even though it's commercially called Top Phos 1520, it contains 15% N. So in that ton, you have 150 pounds of N, 20 P, so 200 kilos of P2O5, so 150 kilos of N, 200 kilos of P, and then you also have 80 kilos of S. Labels are government standard. All labels on base fertilizers are the same. They all carry the same material on it. So you have the percentage of the components. So minimum guaranteed analysis. If it gets sent to a lab, what we often see with fertilizers, it will actually shoot higher than what the label says. You will see the breakdown of it. You will also see the density of the product. You will also see the granulometry of it, so how big the granules are. You will also see the origin of where it is manufactured and where it is, who is selling it, and what is the format of it. So this is a big bag from Europe. We import a lot of our fertilizer from Europe in 600 kg bags. It just makes handling it a lot easier and adds an extra layer of protection when shipping across the ocean. And if there are any hazardous materials within it, you will always have hazard indication on it. And often a lot of products will come with SDS with it, so safety data sheets. So with this product, you got to wear gloves to protect your eyes, wear protective clothing if something happens in your eyes, steps to take as well. Overview of blending fertilizer, it really depends on the infrastructure of your local fertilizer plant. I've seen it all. I have some distributors in the province and in the country that have a vertical blender, which is a glorified cement mixer on a cement pad outside under the stars. I've also seen fertilizer plants that can blend a truckload of fertilizer within 3 minutes with heated floors. It really depends on the setup. Some retail groups have different types of plants. Solios tend to have declining weights, which is essentially a giant conveyor belt with a hopper of each ingredient, and they have a dude with a loader just topping them up as they go, and they have a secretary in the office just keying it in, and it's all automated, and it falls onto a strap like an ice cream sandwich and gets shipped out the conveyor belt to the truck. Growmarks tend to have human blenders, which can blend a lot of fertilizer quickly in a short period of time. They're more techy. More parts can go wrong, honestly, on them, but they're still very good setups. It really depends on where you are, what's the location, etc. So, overview of fertilizer blending. There's always order of operation within the fertilizer plant. You will see the breakdown of the blend. So let's say I have a grower who ordered 1919. So you will need X kilograms of MAP, you will need X kilograms of urea, and X kilograms of potash. And depending on how many tons you need to produce, it will give you the cumulative as to where to stop on the scale. So if you need 10 tons of something, it will tell you go up to, let's say, 4,872 on your urea, keep going till you hit 7,843 on your potash, and then go all the way to 10,000 on your MAP to fill your needs. So it is pretty quick. It's a lot of, it is also very automated. So everything comes out. Computers usually now talk to each other, and it's just a matter of pushing buttons. Or if you're in the situation where you have the glorified cement mixer on the cement pad outside, then you got to be skillful with your loader skills. Next question.
I'm sure used to that glorified cement mixer out there and a skid steer that is barely held together.
Yeah.
Lots of fun there. So we have another question here. Are there some issues with over applying nutrients, and how can we help stop/reduce these issues?
Soil tests, y'all. Soil tests. So knowing what your soil needs, what your crop needs, what your exports are, that will really help with over applying. The issue with over applying is A, it wastes money. B, it's not good for the environment. C, you create antagonisms. I'm sure you've seen in some of your courses that there's that muddler chart where it's like this does not like this. This element antagonizes another element, and we see it a lot more in crops because due to the nature of the production, you got to overdose and make sure you have enough nutrients available to ensure that your crop is getting adequate nutrition. So like in potatoes, for example, phosphorus is short. Let's overdose on phosphorus. Oh, shoot. That has caused a boron deficiency or a magnesium deficiency or a calcium deficiency. Let's add more of that. But in doing so, you're also cutting down your phosphorus. Another reason why to use top phos, essentially. You're antagonizing each other. So with your soil test, coming up with a plan, the crop that you're doing, you come up with the best solutions because over applying, and we see it with the older generation, a fight that I had with my dad all the time. I don't want to pay for a stabilizer. I'm just going to add an extra 15 gallons per acre of UAN. The stabilizer is cheaper. It's better for the environment. It's better for the plants. It stimulates the plants, but yet we're wasting money on extra UAN. It does not make sense. The only one who's smiling to the bank is the retailer, essentially. And UAN, frankly, not my favorite product. Liquid fertilizer, personally, I respect it, but if I can, I'm a granular guy. Like I will not, if I had to choose between a urea ammonium sulfate blend versus UAN, I'd go with the urea ammonium sulfate all day, every day, as long as it's protected.
What are the different methods of applying fertilizers, such as seed place, broadcast, and liquid?
So it really depends on the machinery that you have and the programs that the setup that you have. Uh, Corn starters, for example, soybean starters, you got to think of 4 R's. So right product, right place, right time, and I always draw a blank on this one.
Right source, I think.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, right source. Sources you're pretty limited, but obviously use whatever makes sense for your business. So positioning fertilizer, especially phosphorus fertilizer, because phosphorus doesn't move, as close to the seed as possible is imperative. So corn starters in your band 2x2. For corn, usually we don't put it in furrow. In Eastern Canada, we don't really do much fertilizer with the seed unless it's a pop-up fertilizer, like a liquid starter that is applied at approximately 5 gallons per acre, or some people like to combine their phosphorus fertilizer with their winter wheat when they drill it in. So you can broadcast it and leave it on the surface. You can broadcast it and work it in. You have liquid starters. Many ways to skin this cat, for a lack of better terms. That being said, what machines do you have at your farm? What crops are you growing? What works best for you? And what makes best economic and environmental sense and agronomic sense for your business? So you can have broadcast spreaders, you can have pull type spreader that you rent from your retail, you can have a backpack spreader that has auto shutoff. You can have the same thing with your UAN applicator. You can wide drop your UAN. You can also knife it in. You can harrow it in. There are many, 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 many options. It really depends what makes sense for your business and the crops that you're growing.
Makes sense. Now we're going to move on to nitrogen stabilizers because I know you mentioned those earlier. Those are pretty, I don't know, I've always found those interesting personally. So I know there's single mode and dual mode nitrogen stabilizers. Could you give us a bit of like a general overview of like the importance of these stabilizers and like, which would be ideal, let's say?
Yeah. So essentially, I can hop forward a few slides and then loop back. Nitrogen stabilizers, any stabilizer is better than no stabilizer. Essentially, you're protecting your investment. So this is the nitrogen cycle. You have urea that converts into ammonia, that converts to ammonium. When it is ammonia, it is not very stable. That is due to the urease enzyme chomping down on this extra hydrogen that converts it. Mind you, it is also known that the greenhouse gases that come off of nitrogen fertilizer are also approximately 300% more potent than CO2. So the city people barking up our tree, kind of justified to a certain degree. Once it is ammonium, it is stable. Once it gets into the ground, there are two bacteria, primarily the Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter bacteria, that eat at it further to break it down into nitrate. So like I said, urease inhibitors slow down the breakdown of urea into ammonia by blocking a key enzyme in the soil, keeps more nitrogen available for plants longer. Plants don't suck it up like going to the bank and tapping your bank card and saying, boom, you take up 100 units of N right now. That doesn't work like that. Plants are living creatures. They need to have time to metabolize and convert the fertilizer that they are consuming. The whole point of a stabilizer is to slow down this natural breakdown that happens with urea fertilizers. So that means urea, 32%, and 28%, to make the plant, to allow the plant the time to consume it. Same thing happens here. A nitrification inhibitor slows down the process of turning ammonium into nitrate by stopping the soil bacteria. When it is unstable, rains make it wash away. As a result, plants get a steadier supply of nitrogen throughout their growth cycle. So if we go back to the questions, why should we be using a nitrogen stabilizer? What are the benefits? So NO2, like I said earlier, is approximately 300% more potent compared to CO2. Also, once it's in the soil, it's washing away. Depending on the slant you want to take, you can take the environmental approach, being, hey, it's good for the environment, be a responsible grower, or you can just say, hey, you're wasting your money, essentially. The difference between a dual mode and a single mode stabilizer is a single mode stabilizer will take care of either the urease enzyme or will take care of the nitrosonoma and nitrobacter bacteria. So one will just take care of volatilization, one will take care of just the bacteria. So why choosing a dual mode stabilizer has its advantages. You have two birds with one stone. Essentially, you're taking care of two problems in one jug that you normally would not be able to do with a single mode stabilizer. By doing so, you're allowing time to the plant to actually absorb and convert the nutrition in the plant from the fertilizer into the plant, compared to single mode stabilizers. And there's also old school misconception that, like, hey, I have heavy clay soils, I work in my UAN, I don't need it. You still have losses. And with the prices of fertilizer as they are now, which honestly was the same 2 years ago and 2 years before that, they're very effective in all soil conditions, offering more versatility compared to just single action stabilizers. And essentially, it's an insurance, because what will happen is your money will simply blow away. For cost sharing, there is also the off-CAF funding available across the country. It is money that's given out by the Ministry of Agriculture, if I'm not mistaken, and the Ministry of Environment on a federal level, and it is dispatched around the country. In Quebec, it's the Farmers Union that takes care of it, the UPA. In Ontario, it's the OSCIA, and there are cost funding programs available for growers to try this to get their feet wet. Depending on the province, off the top of my head, you get covered for approximately 80% of the cost of your fertilizer. But looking at Excelis Max, the cost of using a stabilizer is rather minimal. With the current MSRP of Excelis Max right now, you're looking at 4 cents a pound to treat a pound of urea. So if you're putting down 200 pounds of urea, do the math, it's a very low. On UAN, you're looking at about 7 cents a gallon. The cost of protecting is worth the gain in yield.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're going to go into something that I don't think has been covered much. I didn't know much about it personally. So what is phosphorus flash, sorry, pardon me, rhizosphere activation and rhizosphere priming?
These are concepts that are kind of new in the phosphorus world. We just think about in fertilizer in general, we don't think of what it actually does to the soil microbiome, the environment in the soil, and the plants itself. So I have this pretty cool little animation that we did in the lab of root stimulation effect, rhizosphere activation, and rhizosphere priming, and the synergies that are going on that ultimately mean that soil health is soil health, and why we need to protect it, and why we need to be cognizant of what we do with our products that we're applying really are important. Rhizosphere priming and activation describe the enhanced microbial activity and nutrient cycling in the soil around the roots of the plants. This is influenced by the interactions between the plant and the soil microorganisms. The rhizosphere is the region of the soil that surrounds and is influenced by the roots of plants. Rhizosphere priming refers to the phenomenon where the presence of living plant roots enhances microbial activity and organic matter decomposition in the rhizosphere. As we know, plants secrete exudates containing organic compounds, light acids, that ultimately feed the microbiome around the soil. So we can see here how the plant is stimulated, essentially secreting these exudates and enzymes versus a commodity phosphate product. The cool thing is, the more these plants are activated and actively secreting these enzymes, we have a lot more activity going on in the soil. And we can measure this by just quantifying the CO2 respiration off the soil in a lab. So rhizosphere activation, on the other hand, so rhizosphere priming is the roots giving off their juices, essentially digestive juices for lack of better terms, to help break down nutrients and take up nutrients. Rhizosphere activation, on the other hand, refers to the increased microbial and enzymatic activity within the rhizosphere due to the interaction between the roots and these microorganisms. The root exudates released by plants contain sugars, amino acids, organic acids, and other compounds that serve as nutrition for the microorganisms around the soil. As a result, these microbial communities in the rhizosphere become more active, leading to increased nutrient cycling, rendering more nutrition available to the plant. We don't really think about this. Why is this a big deal? Because when we have commodity fertilizers, sometimes we have a flash. The flash essentially is a oversaturation of a nutrient in the soil. So same thing happens with nitrogen, same thing can happen with potash, potassium. This is what we see here with MAP. So within the lab, we were able to see what is the release of phosphate coming from MAP versus top phos. Remember, MAP is your straight phos fertilizer, 1152.0. Top phos is being held back by a barrier containing humic substances and marine calcium. This lower concentration of phosphorus within the soil essentially keeps the soil microbiome in check. It's a way a client and an agronomist actually likened it to was giving antibiotics to a child. When we were younger, we were on meds when we were sick. Stomach hurt because the microbes in our gut essentially were knocked out by the antibiotic. Same principle applies here. The oversaturation of MAP, which also creates a crash in soil pH, will be detrimental to the life of the soil and the microbes in the soil. So maintaining that microbiome in the soil allows for more nutrient cycling to go on and other biological processes that ultimately benefit your crop. And like it says here on the slide in more sciencey terms, damages the fungal symbiosis versus a progressive on-demand release of phosphorus.
So we have another question. This one came in from one of our group members. Have you seen much adoption or use of biologicals in your area? And what is the difference between a biological and a biostimulant?
In Canada, it is a real mess right now. Full transparency, I am also the chair of the Products Committee at Fertilizer Canada, and this is something that is on the front burner of our stove at the moment. There are no regulations in this market space. Anything can be called a biostimulant, anything can be called a biological, anything can be, it is a mess currently. We are a European company. We started working with biostimulants and extracting compounds from beneficial plants, primarily algae, in 1987. In the EU, the registration process that we have to do is astronomical. It is a 7 to 10 year process where we have to prove where we're sourcing our product. We have to prove that we're harvesting the base material ethically and sustainably. We also have to prove the mode of action. We also have to prove the efficacy. And we also have to do third-party research with universities, hence some of the work that we've done with the University of Calgary, because we will be also launching a new biostimulant on the Canadian market in the coming months. That being said, in Canada, there are no rules. So everything is very confusing. I come across agronomists who will liken a biological with a mycorrhiza with a biostimulant. This is a pretty good taxonomy of how you can compare biostimulants on the market. So you have your biostimulants, which can contain microbials or non-microbials. If I look at the European definition, there are no microbials on the EU definition because they are totally living organisms. If we look at the European definition, a biostimulant essentially tells the plant to do what it does naturally better, telling the plant to make more hormone or supplying more hormone to the plant. So auxin, cytokinin, gibberellic acid, IBA, etc., etc. So that's where you see your plant seaweed extracts, your amino acids, your inorganic compounds like organic acids. Microbials usually have to be kept alive. So end-fixing bacteria. If just kind of like a living creature or person that you leave in your truck, don't leave your best friend in the car after a long night. The microbials in the jug also ultimately will not fare well and essentially die. It's like soybean inoculant. They are very temperature sensitive. Mycorrhiza, very temperature sensitive. You cannot leave them in a hot shed or a tractor cab. You will render them useless. And then you also have your plant extracts, bacteria, fungi, yeast, protozoa, and other also living. So biocontrols. In Canada, we also have a rule that is governed by PMRA. So biostimulants cannot do anything to other living creatures. Insecticides are governed by PMRA because insecticides ultimately kill insects. Biostimulants do not do that, and we do not make claims that we can make plants healthier or reduce populations of anything. You can often see, hey, there are less aphids because I treated with this foliar product. That would be in conflict with PMRA. You cannot make those claims. So a biostimulant, we're wholly working on the plant on its own. This is very much open to interpretation depending who you talk to. I know some people who work at a mycorrhiza company. They advocate that their product is a biostimulant as well because there's a symbiotic relationship between the mycorrhizae and the root. It really is up to interpretation, and until these rules are made clear in Canada, it will still be confusing. So am I seeing an uptick in this? Yes, all the major players are coming into the market space. If you look globally, we are in the top 5 manufacturers of biostimulants, but you have Syngenta that has bought Agro in Italy. You have FMC that has picked up a biostimulant company or biological company. Corteva has Invita, which is a bacteria that you put in the soil that is supposed to somehow make a grass fix nitrogen. There are lots of products out there. What is the regulatory side of it to make sure that everything is kosher? Not quite there yet, but the demand is there because everybody's trying to look for the newest, hottest thing. So what I suggest to you guys, do your research, figure out what you need for your crop, what mode of action you're trying to target, and go from there. And try some things out, obviously. Never hurts.
So, based on your experience, would you say that most farmers are mining their soils, or is fertility generally increasing?
It really depends where you are and what you're doing. That being said, there's many schools of thought on this. I personally full disclosure, I went to McGill University in farm in Quebec, where I have fertilizer recommendations made in function of my soil's holding capacity for phosphorus. Also, the fertilizer recommendations are also government mandated. That being said, it will take into function of my historic yield, the zone that I'm living in, and the yield potential. So keeping excess fertility in the soil for no real reason, I, as an agronomist, do not agree with. Yes, you want to keep some fertility in the soil, of course. You don't want it to go totally zero, which is ultimately the goal of the Quebec government, because just put what the crop needs and to heck with the rest. But I also don't believe in keeping excessive amounts of fertility in the soil because essentially it gets wasted. Phosphorus, for example. Phosphorus, we know, is not mobile within the soil. It is also very prone to tie up. The caveat in this is once phosphorus gets shacked up with a calcium, a magnesium, an aluminum, or an iron, it is very mobile and precipitates out. That essentially gives you your eutrophication of waterways. This is why we have these rules in Quebec, because like I grew up south of Montreal, my farm is on Lake Champlain. During my childhood, that lake was the color of lime jello because of algae blooms. Mind you, the Americans also had a play in this as well. But between Quebec, New York, and Vermont, we came up with better practices to come up with this. Manures, for example, putting a lot of manure in your soil. Yeah, manure is the best, not going to lie. Beats fertilizer because of all the benefits it has, organic matter, microbes, etc. That being said, keeping your soil tests high for no real reason is not the best thing in my mind, for the simple reason you are increasing environmental damage and also losing economic benefit. So, are farmers mining their soils? Not really. Fertility increasing Depends where. Often I see veggie farmers with very high soil fertility. I also see dairy farmers with very high fertility just because they have a lot of manure and not a lot of land. That's also part of the Quebec soil, the PAF as we call it, so environmental fertility plan. How many animal units do you have? What manure, what fields are getting the manure? Do not put the manure on the same field over the time, so you oversaturate your fields in phosphorus and other nutrients. And manure is accounted for between neighbors as well. So just be mindful, don't be wasteful of what you're doing. I don't know if that really answers the question. I know I kind of took a Quebecois spin on that one. I'm sorry.
That's all good there. So, this is looking into the future here. What would your top priority be for improving the long term soil fertility of your land or the land of others over the next 10, 20, and 30 plus years?
Honestly, fertility is only a piece of the puzzle. Not gonna lie. You got to look at the whole picture. It's kind of like curing the symptom, but not the cause. Level your soil. Make sure your pH is adequate. Add a soil conditioner. Make sure your drainage is up to snuff. Use buffer strips so you don't have your topsoil going into the ditch and into Lake Erie. I've been to Port Boral where there's topsoil on the beach. Pretty cool to see the submarine, but when you have topsoil from Leamington that has washed up with the currents, that's fertility. That is like, let's put the environment to the side. That is money that you have paid for in fertilizer in Lake Erie. There's no way around it. Yeah. And it's not good for the environment and the fish and the eutrophication of the waterway, etc. And flying often, like I have in the past from Ottawa to Windsor to deal with growers in that part of the world, after a rainstorm, the lake looks like chocolate milk. That is fertility. That is money in the water and not getting into your crop. So taking care of your soil, fixing your drainage, leveling it so you don't have pooling, making sure your water gets off the soil in an adequate amount of time. Those are the main cruxes that you got to work on. Then the rest will come. You will pull better yields. You can fertilize more adequately. You can take care of things. Keeping your pH in check, making sure you're liming properly. Very important, because that will make the fertilizer investment that you're spending more efficient. Getting more bang for your buck. Because you can put all the fertilizer or biostimulants or stabilizers or everything what you want, but if you have no soil structure and your fields don't dry out because they don't drain, what's the point? You got to take care of the basics and work your way up. Cover cropping is also a good one. Catching those extra nutrients, bringing more organic matter back to your soil. Look at bringing in soil, like if you live in a region with animal productions, import some manure if you can. Do a proper rotation. Don't grow corn on corn on corn or beans on beans on beans on beans. Take care of your soil because it's like a savings account. Like I have growers this year with the fertilizer prices saying, oh, I'm going to cut back on my fertilizer. Realize that you're pulling back out of that savings account. Whatever you're going to pull out this year, you're going to have to stick back again next year and some. So, yeah.
Sounds good there. Well, thank you very much for that. That was very insightful. Does that just about wrap us up here, or is there?
Yeah, we have just two more quick questions. It kind of ties into the last one. So if you have lower productivity on your farm field, would you apply less or more inputs? Honestly, like I said earlier, fix the field first. Address the problems. Fix your drainage. If you're in the prairies, fix your salt patches or your sour patches. Put down some line, fix it. Inputs won't save your butt in this. Sorry if it comes across a little cross, but it won't help you. It's like, oh, I'm eating at a Chinese restaurant, but I'm drinking a Diet Coke. What the heck's the point? Drink the Coke. You've already consumed 3,000 calories. Look in the mirror. That being said, and the last question we have, has technology impacted what I do for work, either progressive or negative? Totally has impacted for the best. We have so many tools and resources available to us. Satellite mapping, drones, variable rate fertilizer and calcium lime applications. We can all do that. Georeference soil testing, so you can see exactly which patches in your field you need to fix. The machines can shut off where you need to. They turn on when they need to. You're more efficient with the fertility that you're putting down. As for soil tests, I, being the Anglo from Quebec, I am, 3 years ideally. 5 years by law for us is the longest you can go without soil tests. It is your baseline. It tells you what you have going on in your field. And if you do georeference soil samples, you're always going back to the same spot year after year after year. Every time you do a test, you're going back to the same spots. You can see how things evolve. And without that, you don't have a baseline and you're pretty much shooting in the dark. It's as if going to your GP and getting a blood work done every year. If you see something that on the soil test that is starting to deteriorate, you can take action to fix it before it goes bad. So use the tech on your side. There's also grants for that with the OSCIA. Dig through your agronomists. You'll find some money somewhere, but it's more than worth the investment, even without the grant.
Well, that was a big thing I've always found with the growers is that it's not really that much more to have a soil test done every couple of years, and it's just you could save so much money in like just knowing what's in your soil.
Totally. And like anecdote, when I used to work for ag retail, I had a grower. I sold him on georeference soil sampling, and he's like, "Oh, it cost me $25 an acre." Mind you, this is 10 years ago. $25 an acre. This is expensive. But in doing so, I was supposed to sell him 12 trucks of ag lime with the soil tests, with the map, with the variable rate application. I shaved that down to 7.
Wow.
He saved money on the lime. So spending more money on the soil tests saved him money globally. And it's the same thing with, like, if you want to do variable rate potash applications in the fall. Same thing. Use your money, you invest in nutrition that is efficient, and what you invest in, put it at the right place. 4 R's all over again. So I hope that answered all your questions.
Yep. I think that answered everything we were asked, either from the group or from other people in the class. I thank you very much for your time here. That was awesome.
Anytime,
You're a
my pleasure.
very insightful man here.
uh, it comes with time, and you guys will all get there too. I kind of miss my university days sometimes. So, so have a great day.
You too. I think that just about wraps it up here. And oh,
Yep.
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Anytime. Bye.
Bye.